last 5 years, I think I've sold about $3.2 million worth of apps. Okay, so yeah, so I got it figured out. But guess what? When I first started with GoMobile and became a white label reseller, I thought, well, I have kind of a tech background in sales, so this is going to be a no-brainer, is what I thought. Well, just to get those first 2 app sales was really hard, on GoMobile. It was tough. I just thought, well, you say this, and this, and that closes a sale. Well, guess what? It doesn't. and when it all changed, and I'm going to tell you the real stories, I figured out just by conversations with certain clients that if you can give them one clever idea that they can do with it, go with an app, or why they should use it, they will literally hook onto that and not let go. Okay, I can give me an example. Grinds Coffee in Little Rock, Arkansas. They have 2 stores. They make fresh bread every day and pastries and have really good coffee and have a lot of people that show up at their 2 stores in Little Rock, Arkansas. And I hadn't met this guy, just met him by chance, and we began discussing an app. And I could tell he was kind of mildly interested. And he was talking about his business. He was on the phone. He's ex-military because there's an Air Force base near there, and him and his wife own these 2 stores. So he says, we have chalkboards in our stores where we write everything down every day, and everyone around here looks for the specials. They come in, they see the special on the chalkboard. There's homemade soup, homemade bread, all these cookies and all kinds of great stuff. Bottom line is, I said, well, this is by accident, by the way. I said, how does everyone find out about the fresh soup every day and the baked breads and all that? And he goes, well, they got to come in. And it just so happened I had been talking to a security guy in Miami about an app that he never bought for security watch. And I said, well, what if we just got you a little cheap $45 Amcrest camera at Amazon or Walmart? They sell them everywhere. There's a lot of different brands. And we hang it up on the ceiling and we point to the chalkboard so everyone can see, just by clicking on a link on the app, a URL that's connected there, so they can see what's fresh every day, all time, 24/7. Change it as often as you want. That changed everything. He had to have the app. Not only did he have to have the app, but since I kind of stuck with him throughout the process, he told a few of his friends, a guy who owns a barbecue buffet kind of thing called the Meat Shop. But taking good care of him really helped, because he was one of my first customers, and I had no idea what the deal was. It wasn't clicking. And then I realized I was doing this shotgun approach where I'd say, you need an app because it can do these 20 things, and I could rattle them off like it was nothing. But guess what? That wasn't closing the sale. It was about telling a story, like, hey, you can go look at that menu. The story sells, not the statistics, so go with the story. Don't sell statistics. Like 85% of people don't put up a push notification. That's fine, and I'm sure it's true. Maybe it's 90%, maybe it's 98%. But that's just a stat. When you got a story, like they can see your wife's homemade soups on those chalkboards every day and fill orders for carry out and in the place, that sold it. It's end the story. That's it. And not only that, but he referred friends. And when those guys called, when the guy who owned the meat shop, he has a big barbecue buffet place there in Central Arkansas as well. I'm actually in St. Louis, but I'm familiar. They're an adjacent state to us. The guy that owns the buffet is right near an Air Force base, and he said all those young guys that are in the Air Force get sick of the food on base, and when they get leave, they want to go out and eat some good barbecue. And so that was the deal there. Like, hey, we got a way for them to see that barbecue. Once again, use the camera idea with them. So, it's just a clever idea sells a lot. And I'm going to talk some.
Let me put an exclamation
mark
on this for you, Paul, because it's really important. And this goes back to, when you think about selling an app to a business, you have to think about the customer. Why would they care to engage with that app? Solve that question by making the app do one thing really good. And that's exactly what Katie did with cameras for the pet hotels. That's exactly what Paul just described to you right now. Again, it's that silver bullet reason why not only is everybody going to want to download it, but that's why the business will buy it. And when they can see that story, they will invest more in that story. Great idea, Paul. Thank you. That's the first big nugget here, and it applies in every single app sale. You've got to think, what is that one thing this app can do that'll just be lights out for both the customers and the owner?
It's exactly true. You know, I experienced the same kind of a problem. I sold an app to a guy up in Cleveland, Ohio, that owns 6 car dealerships. Really nice guy. And he just wanted an app because he thought it would help him sell cars. But what he found out, and I wasn't closing the sale, by the way, the guy was just, once again, mildly interested, kind of, his first name is Pat, going back and forth. I don't know, you know, our sales manager says this and that. And I said, well, what if you could send out service bulletins and things about oil change specials and that? I didn't know that's where he made all his money. He's not making it on new cars. He's making it on all that service. And that's repeat business. That's residual income. When I said you can send out notifications and remind everyone to come in there and get their oil change, all of a sudden he wanted to buy. But all the other stuff I had to say just didn't count. It's like what Damien just said. That was a silver bullet. I can get people back in for servicing their vehicles. Because, you know, you don't buy a brand new car every day. So, you know, but you do go in and get oil changes and new tires and all that kind of stuff.
That's what apps are about. It's about why would it be useful for the customers? And hey, you know what? They want the oil change notifications as well. They want the discounts on the service, or they want the messages when it's time for a spring service, you know, things like that.
Another thing I found out the hard way, these are all things I had to live, is you get people, you meet somebody who isn't interested in an app, and they have no idea of budget. I mean, they'll give you 20 pages of what they want an app for, and you'd say, well, you know, I never was asking early on, what's your budget? I mean, a 20-page thing, you're building the Taj Mahal, and the guy say, my budget's $500. It's like we'd have to work 6 months to build that thing. It's $500. So now I always ask that, but don't ask it in a way that will be offensive. You know, you say, look, I don't want to know how much money you have to spend. That's not appropriate to ask. But if you were shopping for a home and a real estate agent was driving you around to multi-million-dollar homes and you said, I can only spend $500,000, so let's look at those, you would tell an agent right away, we're not looking at those multi-million-dollar homes because I can't buy them. What are we driving around for? So just think of that. And if you put it in those terms, it's friendly. You're not trying to find out how much they have in their bank account or anything, but you do have to get to budget because some people are unwilling to bring it up, and they just string you along, and it's ego with men. I don't know what it is with women. Women aren't that way. They'd probably tell you the truth right away, but men got egos, and they're not going to say, I don't have the money. But a lot of times they don't have the money. So it's okay to ask. Maybe they need something as basic as they can possibly get, and that's fine. They got to start somewhere. So that's another thing that came up a lot. I sold a number of churches, and I got more that want to buy right now. And I found the pastors react to the fact that someone can get a notification and click on it. It could be a link to their Facebook Live or Instagram and watch a live service. The pastors like people to be watching and listening to them. If you bring that up, they got to have it, you know. And now, obviously, with the coronavirus in the last year, it's, you know, a bigger deal than ever before in our history. So it's absolutely a powerful tool for anybody that has to be in front of you, in particular churches. And obviously it's a way to give donations. And this is something I've learned along the way, is to leverage whatever the customer has as a resource. If they love their logo, just get them to imagine that on an app. I don't care what it is that they love about their business. Like the guy with his chalkboards and his wife making all the fresh soup every day, whatever it is, just leverage whatever resources they like and compliment them. I mean, compliments go a long way. I mean, I can't say enough about it. I remember John Stout, who owns Grinds Coffee. I said, who's that beautiful woman at the chalkboard? Well, you already knew it was his wife, but I didn't tell him. There are pictures on her Facebook page. He says, oh, that's my wife. Well, yeah, I could have sold him anything at that point. So compliments go a long way. There are certain things that work and a lot of things that don't work. So I'm just telling you about, through experience, these things work, and just all this other stuff. If I know all the statistics and all the details, I thought that was important, and it really isn't. It, like you said, Damien, right at the beginning, if you can get that one silver bullet, and it could be the smallest thing, but they're done then. It's like, how do I order? Let's get going, you know.
And on top of that, when you've already had it built by the GoMobile team and you get to hand that along with it, and they can see that logo like you're suggesting, that's their baby, right? They fall in love with it right there. That's why it's so powerful.
Yeah, they do. It's theirs. All of a sudden, it's not just a thought of, an app on a mobile phone. It's their app, and they don't personalize it because it's software, and then, I like to spend my time with people that are interested in apps. So I don't spend a lot of time asking people if they would be interested in an app. I say, look, if you have an interest in an app, let me know. And you'd be surprised. They'll think about it, and sometimes they'll call you back a week later. Could you do this or could you do that? But if you go in with the idea that, hey, I got a knockout punch, I'm going to swing and knock them out, and they're just going to order, that doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Like, just please tell me what works. Well, let them describe to you what works. They're the customer. They got to be talking, not you. If they're talking, they're buying. If you're talking, they're not buying. So just let them talk all they want. Just do the old John Stout at Grinds Coffee. It's like, so you have a chalkboard, and then he goes over the whole pitch of the fresh soups every day and all this stuff. But you don't have to say much, just a couple of words, and it just, grows. It grows big. Another thing is, if the customer has a website, use as much of that as you can. They might have a lot of stuff on there that would be relatively expensive. There's a GoMobile's working on an app right now for an outfit called Homesteaders of America. And that app has so much junk. So it's going to have a lot of links, but the app doesn't have to do the work. The website does. She's got a really fancy WordPress site with 40 different plugins in it for this and this and this and this and meetups and everything, the Homesteaders thing. But the app just needs a few links. So it's really straightforward, really easy to follow. So use those. Don't try to recreate the wheel. If they love them, hey, they're working on it now. As a matter of fact, I talked to Damien about it the other day, and Greg. So stick to one theme, and then, when someone sees that value, I don't care what it is, like that silver bullet that Damien talked about. When they see that value, they'll find the money to pay for it. It's amazing how they can say, I don't have the extra money. And when they all of a sudden see value, boom, it's like that they somehow miraculously find the money to pay for it. So stick with that theme. I don't care. Just circle back and circle back and circle back. With the story about the chalkboard, or the car dealer that loved the Preston Chevrolet is the name of it. And he owns a Cadillac dealership and a Ford dealership and a Subaru or something else. But I think he has 6 dealerships. But when we started talking service and he lit up, hey, you got it. You got him. Just stick with service. You don't need to go over how many push notifications you can do or geofences. It's all great and it's all necessary and wonderful. But once he's sold on service, so go with service. That's my 2 cents for the main things I've been doing, and change the idea of customers are always leery of salespeople trying to twist their arm and say, you got to buy, you got to buy. If you should get to a point where they're asking you, so how do I get started? I mean, that's where you want to go with this thing. If they see that value, they're going to ask you that. Like, how do I get started, Damien, with that app? Okay, let's take some basic information and get a payment method, whatever, But they should be right to that point, instead of you pinning them saying, can you order it today? Because they're afraid of that. Just remember, they're afraid of it. Even a car guy like Pat at Preston Chevrolet. So yeah, those are the key things.
Really good stuff.